You're listening to the Iterators of the Imperium.
Hello, and welcome back to the Iterators of the Imperium. I am one of your usual hosts, Ryan, but things are a little different today. Mez is not with us. He is currently moving house, so for a couple episodes, I'm going to have a special guest with me. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, thanks for the opportunity, Ryan. So, my name is Nils Blume. One may notice that I'm not a native English speaker. I'm a German native living in Germany, and I do not get the opportunity so often to talk in the English language. So I'm a little bit rusty on that. And I'm quite a big fan of Warhammer 40K, which is why I get the opportunity to talk on this podcast. And I think the biggest point is that I would love to talk to one Warhammer 40K expert to another, which is maybe quite a big difference to the normal episodes.
Yeah, so that is probably going to be the biggest difference here, which is that rather than it being a teaching opportunity for me teaching Mez, who knows nothing about this, the difference is that I think you actually probably know more about Warhammer 40k than I do. Which is, it's going to be quite a different mechanic, you know, it's going to work quite a bit differently, which I appreciate. So, just for everyone watching, this first episode is probably just going to be us kind of chatting a bit about the general topic and stuff like that, rather than trying to, you know, pass on specific information to the viewers.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I figured that a good place to start would actually be to mention how it is that we ended up talking in the first place. Because, so for anyone that doesn't know, I collect the limited edition copies of the new releases of the Warhammer novels, or 40k novels specifically. I haven't gotten into the Sigmar ones just yet. I've got a couple of them, but I'm not getting too far into that one. That's too much money, I think, to be collecting all of them across the board. And I post these novels that I managed to acquire on Instagram, and you obviously do your reviews of the books on Instagram, don't you?
Yes. So, like Ryan, I started collecting a limited editions book of Warhammer 40k of the Black Library, and because I'm a big fan of the Warhammer 40k universe, but mostly of the lore aspect of it. So
yes,
everything which is the Iterators of the Imperium podcast about, and that is also why I got into this hobby. And I started last year in May, I think, with posting pictures of my limited editions, but early on I thought that I do not want to push myself with just getting a praise on my limited editions, but I wanted to review the books from which I got the limited editions to maybe give the readers of my reviews a better understanding of Warhammer 40k, or what the book is all about, if it gets a recommendation of myself, or the opposite.
Yeah. So, out of curiosity, what was the last book that you reviewed now? In case I've missed one of them on your Instagram.
The last book I reviewed, it was Belisario's Call, The Great Work. I already read Genefather, and my last book which I read was Siege of Terra, from the Siege of Terra series. The latest book, like The End and the Task Volume 2. But right now I haven't done a review about Genefather or Siege of Terra for quite some time, but I'm working on it.
I'm excited for your Genefather review. That'll be good. That'll be interesting. Genefather was an excellent book, although it has pretty severe implications for the lore around it.
Yeah, Of course, Genefather is like the latest book regarding the events of modern Warhammer 40K, like the Erandomitus, what is going about with Booty Gilliman, the Lion, so on and so on. But regarding the actual chronological events, interestingly enough, it isn't the latest one, because Genefather takes place really right before Gilliman is about to enter Imperium Nihilus for the first time. And
Yeah, so it would be before the Lion's return.
Yeah.
Well, the novel about the Lion's return.
Arguably, because the Lion could also... Yeah, no, you're right. Because my point was that Devastation of Baal is like the latest, or better to say the follow-up, like Darkness and Blood is the latest one. But in Devastation of Baal, one may note that Gilliman turns up and saves the last sons of the Blood Angels, like Dante and so on. And Dante is the first one to meet the Lion and to get him the knowledge that Rubuti Gilliman lives. So you were right on that point.
Yes. But that one, the Lion novel, also takes place after Darkness in the Blood. Because in Darkness in the Blood, they argue about whether or not Dante should become a Primaris. And when he turns up in the Lion novel, he is a Primaris. So it takes place after. So yeah, the Lion one must be technically the most recent.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. What did you think of the great work?
I think that I like the great work more than Genefather, because it's like the link between the Dark Imperium trilogy, which was all about Booty Gilliman fighting Mortarion, and we also got interesting characters, and the one connecting the bridge between the Dark Imperium trilogy and Genefather in the great work was the character of Felix. Felix is like the former equerry of the Primarch of Booty Gilliman, and was also announced as a Tetrarch. Tetrarch? Was it pronounced Tetrarch? Of the modern... Yeah, the difficult word. Of the modern realm of Ultramar. And
so
he...
Just to check, the Tetrarchs, how many planets is it they oversee? Is it thirds? Because isn't there like 300 worlds of Ultramar? So isn't it 3 Tetrarchs that basically cover 100 each or something like that?
It's 500 worlds.
500 worlds. That's what it is.
But that was only the former realm, like when Gilliman ruled over Ultramar, or the realm of Ultramar in 30K, like during the Great Crusade, Siege of Terror, Horus Heresy, Great Scattering. It was like round about 500 words. I think it's also just a figure of speech to say 500 words.
Yeah, it's easier to say 500 than it is to say 487.
Or 513 for that instance. Yes. And with the Codex, with the implementation of the Codex Astartes and the shrinking of the Legion size to 2 chapters, I think he also broke the realm of Ultramar apart, so that his own chapter, like the Ultramarines, could better rule that part, because for a chapter of only 1,000 Space Marines to rule a realm of Ultramar, which is, I think, maybe also the biggest part of the galactic map. Like
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, the was it called Pacificus, Solar,
the Segmentum.
Exactly, Segmentum, Ultramar. I think it's the biggest one. It wasn't logical, but nowadays Gilliman, as he says in the Dark Imperium trilogy, reminiscence about his decision. So he thinks that he did a mistake to split the realm of Ultramar, and he has forced all of the rumors of the former parts of the big realm of Ultramar to get this done to one big realm again.
Yeah.
And I think nowadays it's once again the 500 worlds of Ultramar, which are combined like the realm of Ultramar, and I think roundabout each Tetrarch has like 120 worlds, 125. But then again, I think they are also normal when it comes to the ranks of Ultramars. Like there are really 5, because I think Manius Kalga isn't a Tetrarch, but also get the responsibility for McGreg, for example.
Yes. That
And
makes
some
sense.
some words which are connected to McGreg in its immediate vicinity, I would suggest. So, like, I would say there are actually 5 Tetrarchs, which is quite funny because Tetrarchs, as one may know, it's Latin for 4. So, yeah.
I did not know that, but good to know.
Like, it's not Tetrarch does not mean 4, but it's the origin of Tetrarch, of the name Tetrarch, comes from 4.
Yes, aye.
Yeah.
Good to know, though.
Yeah.
It's the Dark Imperium trilogy that has the scene where Gilliman is like staring at all the calendars currently used in the Imperium, and he's just like, no wonder no one knows what fucking year it is.
Yeah, it's also a part which gets rewinded in Genefather, and it's actually quite interesting because Gilliman, as you had mentioned, he acknowledges the fact that there is no coherent timeline for the Imperium. So, because of the 10,000 long reign of the Imperium, there and the decline of the bureaucracy, and because everyone knows that in 40k the Imperium is like always on the decline since the Horus
Since the
Heresy.
golden age of technology.
Yeah, it's really to live in the Imperium in the modern Warhammer 40k universe. It's not a great thing.
It's pretty grim.
if you do not live like an Ultram, which is like the whole example of being a citizen.
Yeah, although to be fair, even during the Dark Imperium novels, it didn't make living in Ultramar sound particularly great.
No, not when some greater Primarch is invading the realm. Not exactly, yes.
Yeah. Right, I want to check with you. Do you happen to remember the part in one of the Dark Imperium novels where it describes Mortarion as being like 40 feet tall? And then it never, there's no point in them mentioning it because it has no bearing on the story. And at the time, I think he's just having a conversation with someone. So he's not trying to intimidate anyone or fight anyone. He's just giant for like one chapter or one scene for no reason.
I cannot quite remind myself of that scene. Not of the text passage where it's called that he's like 40 foot tall, but I can surely imagine that it's written down there because, like, from all the traitor Primarchs, Mortarion was the biggest one, which like he was already tall as a normal Primarch without being a Chaos Primarch, like a Ascended Chaos Primarch, Demon Primarch. But when he ascended to demonhood, it was written that he was then again stretched to enormous heights, and as demon primarchs, like we can see with Magnus, like he hasn't got a fixed form. The form which we know of Magnus is only his form he chooses to stay in, but he can also be like 100 foot tall, I could imagine.
Maybe I believe Fulgrim seems to be the only one with a relatively fixed form. But it seems
Angron?
like he's just made that decision.
But what about Angron? I would say he's the
Fair
best
point, yes.
example of having a fixed form, because
Yeah.
Fulgrim also
He
could
changes
choose,
size. Fulgrim does change size.
and he could also choose to be in his former not demonic Primarch form, but his original Primarch form.
Does he ever do that? Because I don't remember it ever happening.
I do not know how far you have gotten into certain books, so I do not want to
Fair.
spoil you.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But yeah, you
Yes.
might be right, actually. Angron might be the most fixed one.
Because I think the thing about Angros, maybe he could do that, but he has just not the mind for it to do it.
Yeah,
because
potentially.
From all of the four classic demonic Primarchs, he's pure rage. So there is nothing left of a mind capacity to have coherent thoughts.
Yeah, you're probably right. He probably has the ability to do it, but not like the wherewithal to actually, go through with it.
Yeah, I could imagine that, because like from all the other Primarchs, the demonic Primarchs, there is the hint that they can change forms.
Yes. Out of curiosity, right? I have a question for you about that. That's right.
Yes.
I'm sure we mentioned this last time we spoke, but which demon Primarch do you think or which Chaos Primarch do you think will be the next one to make an active appearance? None of this like Lorgar being mentioned in the background or that, actually turning up in the story like Angron has and stuff like that.
So chronologically, we from active rules of demonic Primarchs in modern Warhammer 40K. We got first Angron during the first War of Armageddon.
Yes.
Where he got banished from
the Grey
Knights. Exactly. I think to some extent we also got Mortarion, who was also banished by Calder Drago, who carved his name in a badass manner into his heart. But I do not know if there was a certain story about it. So let's just stay fixed on Angron. Rather recently, during the Dark Imperium era or Era Indomitus, we got Magnus, who faced Gilliman on the Moon of Terror.
Magnus was also around before that, I believe, because he attacks. He tries
Fenris,
to take.
right? He attacks Fenris, right?
Yeah, he tries to take revenge, but interestingly, I believe it's been like hundreds of or thousands of years since the burning of Prospero, but when he turns up, he states that it's only been like a matter of like 50 weeks or something like that for them, which is quite interesting. Okay. The warp really messes with time, but yeah, so Magnus was around back then as well when he attacked the Fang.
Also, interestingly enough about that, because I wasn't aware of that fact, is because Magnus is like the prime example for knowledge. Like, he just also the most chaotic entity which is connected to knowledge, to wisdom, and so on and so on. Like, in a twisted way, of course, but nonetheless. And it's interesting that Magnus isn't sure about the fact of the coherent time to say that it has only been 50 weeks or whatever. So interestingly, wasn't aware of that. And after Magnus, we got let me just think about it. We got Mortarion again, like in the Dark Imperium trilogy. Yeah. It's all about Mortarion. And the latest Primarch to rematch was once again Angron. We see him during the Arcs of Ohm campaign. Like, he got a specific Arcs of Ohm book, and we see him again.
There's even a novel about him in the modern day.
Also, exactly, yes, of course. He also got his own novel, which isn't really about him, but
it's also not particularly good either.
That's another point for itself. And he got his last mention in the last Arcs of Ohm campaign book, which was also all about the line. So we got, in chronological order, Angron, Magnus, Mortarion, Angron.
Fulgrim is in there as well.
Yes, but more like in a
More as a background or a secondary character
exactly,
rather
yeah,
than like
exactly.
out in the world attacking stuff.
So from the remaining Primarchs, which we have not mentioned, like in active appearance like manner, we have got remaining Fulgrim, we have got Lorga, we have got Pethrebo. That's it, right? Farius Omegon are dead, supposedly. Curse is seriously dead.
Curse
So
is
like
really dead.
Evidence dead. Horus is evidence dead. So we have got like 3 of these remaining. And since the release or re-emergence of Primarch, Demon Primarch is always connected to the franchise of Warhammer 40k, because we also have to step out of our Warhammer 40k bubble, lore bubble, and
it's all about the money.
Exactly, one step back into reality. I would say it's going to be Fulgrim, because we haven't got the new models of Noise Marines, of Slaneshi Chaos Space Marines for ever.
Yeah.
So I think that's the next big release, because we already got Thousand Suns. We got in the 8th edition. We got a really great take on the Plague Marines, and the latest one was the Core Knight Marines. So like all about the World Eaters. So I think it's going to be Fulgrim, and yeah. That would be my take. Of course, I would love to see Perthrobo, which is personally my favorite Demon Primarch, or Traitor Primarch, better to say.
Yeah. Oh no, he is a Demon Primarch.
Yeah, he's a Demon Primarch, but I wanted to say from all of the traitor-sided Primarchs.
Right, okay,
so,
yes. Because Curse never became a demon and so on and so forth. Yeah, fair.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I could see Fulgrim absolutely being the next one. Like, talking purely in like a lore point of view, I could see Fulgrim being the next one, because he's been around the most, I guess, out of the ones that haven't turned up yet. I think if he does come into it, it's either going to be as like a revenge against Gilliman to like try and finish what he started and kill him properly, or he'd be dragged out by whatever Bile is planning next to try and like put an end to his like rebellious son.
Yeah, so when it comes down to Fulgrim, I haven't thought about that. So it's also pure hypothesis. But I think your take about Fabius Bile is a great one, because Fabius Bile has gotten much attention from Black Library in the recent years. So we got a whole trilogy about him. The latest work of Genefather is all about the conflict between Belisarius Cawl and Fabius Bile. And also Fabius Bile got something in that book. I'm not going to spoil what he got, but he got something, which of course makes it again more interesting to see what comes out from that. And so there would be, of course, a nice connection to that. Not necessarily so, because like Angron also doesn't give a damn about Khan, for example.
Yeah, fair.
Maybe that's due to his nature. And Fulgrim and Fabius Bile are much more connected, also in modern form of 40k, like in opposition to Angron and Khan. And the other thing would be, of course, that he could not also he just could not also face Gilliman, but of course Elian. Since we have got now a second loyal Primarch to be on stage, so maybe there's also something like that. And all Fulgrim already, you said, to take revenge on Gilliman. And corrected, I would say corrected yourself in the same sentence, because he bested Gilliman. He
it wouldn't be
revenge. Took him
out.
He nearly killed him.
Yeah.
And he took him out of the board for 10,000 years. So without Gilliman, there has been such a great decline for the Imperium. And I think he got him good, to say it.
Oh, he did, yes. Yeah, he definitely did. See, I don't know how they would relate Fulgrim into Bile's storyline. Because as it stands, as far as I'm concerned, it looks like what we're going to get is this war between Bile and Call, where it's going to be like a recreation of the war in heaven, but like in miniature. So rather than it being this galaxy-spanning war, we're going to have this like essentially two generals leading an army each against each other, representing one side of the war in heaven. So you'll have Call representing the Necrons using technology and engineering to fight, and Bile representing the old ones using this like gene manipulation and mutants and stuff to fight, which is essentially what they did, because they made the Eldar and the humans and the Quarks and everything like that to fight back against the Necron technology. So I think that's what that's leading to anyway. Setting those two against each other and making such a clear point of like the difference in the way they do things. It seems like too much of a similarity to the past to not have this like, let's have the past repeat itself as a storyline. That'll be fun.
Funnily enough, I would say that I'm not on the same page with you on that take. I see these similarities you mentioned, but I would say it's just without the inclination of that being the ancient dispute between Necrons and the old ones. I would say it's just from a modern aspect a good opposition, because both of them are great genius. Have a great genius, and both of them are like the prime examples for genecraft. Like Fabius Bile, of course, with all his experience starting in the 30K, with experimenting on his brother Space Marines, creating the Noise Marines, creating cloned Primarchs, and creating drugs. All about that, and also his own aim to achieve the next human species to survive the horrors of
the new man.
Yeah, exactly. And essentially, Bile wants to fulfill the goal of the Emperor, which is also in a twisted kind of way, of course, because Fabius Bile is he's a bad guy.
He's
not a good guy. But essentially, he wants to fulfill the Emperor's promise to give the galaxy to humans, but his humans, because he wants to be the creator. And Belisarius' Call, of course, is the other part of that medal, because he created the Primaris Marines. He improved the work of the Emperor due to Gilliman trusting him and giving him the genetic material. And those... I never thought about it before that book, but of course those stood in direct stood in direct opposition to each other. So yeah, it's nice to see them clash for once, but I would not say that it has to be a replay of the War of Heaven.
I think at the very least it'll be like a similar inspiration behind it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or at the very least it's like themed to be similar to it. But also, I think you misunderstood Fabius Bile's his motivations.
Yes.
I think because you said that he wants to be the one to create this new version of humanity which will take over the galaxy, and it's not that he wants to create it, it's that he feels he is the only one that can. He's like, he still believes he's following like not like a divine purpose, but I guess that he's the only one that can do what the Emperor wanted, for lack of a better term. It's interesting though, because most of humanity's like way of fighting and stuff like that is the idea that we have to make the galaxy safe for humanity. And Bile is going about it in the opposite way, where he's like, no, I'll just make humanity tough enough to take on the galaxy. Galaxy doesn't have to be safe. Humanity needs to be tougher.
That is a really good take, actually.
Yeah. Because the whole point of the new men is that they're faster, they're stronger, they have better instincts. They are biologically or evolutionarily. There's a word there somewhere. They're smarter in that sense too. They will naturally breed like beneficial traits. So if one of their one generation has children in it which are like, I don't know, I guess they have like too large a muscle mass or something like that, they will intentionally breathe that out so that they're not too big and bulky, because then they become less agile. Things like that. They actually intentionally breed good traits into their future offspring, which is quite cool. But it means that as time goes on, they're only going to get better and better as killers.
Yeah, or better to say, they are only getting better to survive whatever confronts them.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only thing they aren't like particularly, because the new men at the stage they're at, I think around the third Fabius Bile novel, by that stage they are like more than capable of murdering Space Marines.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, but I don't think they're up to much against Psychers. I don't think it's something they've ever had much exposure to. So
well,
I don't know if they'd be any good at that in particular.
What I think it's most interesting about them, like what I read, again, I've only read the first one of the trilogy of the Fabius Bile books, and of course the latest one, Gene Father. Where Fabius Bile takes a big role, and I think he mentions again in the Gene Father that his creation, I do not know if it's already is a new man or if it's like one stage ahead of the new man.
I think the one he has with him in Gene Father is like the next thing beyond new man. But
he isn't calling it new man anymore, isn't he?
No, I think that something. It's been a while since I read the last of the Fabius Bile novels.
Yeah.
I believe something happens that he basically decides to distance himself from the new men and let them just do their own thing. Because, again, he set them up to this point that they will breed and evolve on their own and they will train themselves, stuff like that. So I think that the mutant, or the creation he has with him in Gene Father, is an entirely new thing, but based on the new men. I think it's like new men combined with like alien genealogy rather than just advancing humanities.
Exactly. I think he mentioned that he's so proud of his product, to say so.
Yeah.
Because it has evolved naturally without him doing something about it, without him being without him needing to interact with it. So I think it's a product from the new man, whatever. Creating something new. And I think, interestingly enough, that this new species or whatever is resistant to chaos.
Yes. I think we're probably going to be looking at a new novel that kind of focuses to explain a bit more about that. Which I think it's something that'll have piqued a lot of people's interests. Also, I don't know if it was just me, right? Because there's a lot in the conversation in Gene Father between Bile and Call at that kind of their actual point of meeting, right? There's a lot in there that suggests that Call has... So, for anyone who doesn't know, Belisarius Call has the first Primaris Marine he ever made with him at basically all times, because it's like his personal bodyguard. Alpha Primus is the name, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And Alpha Primus is a Psyker as well as the first Primaris Marine, and he seems to be a bit better than the rest. But Fabius Bile seems to suggest, after stealing his gene seed, that that he is a Primarch. That Cole has handcrafted a Primarch Primaris.
Well,
Or at least something closer to that.
yeah, I have some points to that. Of course, big spoiler mark on that.
Yeah.
On big spoiler on the story of Genefather. I think Alpha Primus isn't actually the first Primaris Marine. Like, that's what Bile calls him, but Alpha Primus also has got like a dream, a vision, or psychic vision where he wanders around in a space and sees like many capsules classified as Alpha. So there have been many alphas before him, but Belisarius calls him Alpha Primus to his own demise. So Alpha Primus is not a big fan of that.
I was under the impression that those other tanks you see that are all labeled as like Alpha were. I was under the impression that was like showing the process that Call went through trying to perfect the Primaris, and they were all the other failed versions, and Alpha Primus as we know him was the first one that like succeeded, for lack of a better term. So that's why I thought he was the first Primaris Marine.
Well, I'm not sure about
I could be wrong.
that. Yeah, I'm not sure about that, but I think Alpha Primus mentions himself that he thinks that before he was created, there have been others like him.
Right. Okay.
Maybe not exactly like him, but having same gifts like him. And also, Alpha Primus is sorry for the pronunciation, Chimera.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Chimera. That's it.
Yeah, so I think Call has spliced different gene seeds together to create Primus. So maybe there is Primarch gene seed in there. I'm not sure about it, but there's definitely different Legion gene seed in there. So
So there's probably some Thousand Suns, for example, to make him a Psyker, things like that.
Yeah, I would strongly suggest that. Yeah, because Bile is really surprised about the potential of the psychic potential of Alpha Primus.
Yeah,
and he also says that Alpha Primus hasn't reached his whole potential of psychic talent, for instance. So I think there's also like his raw physical endurance or strength, something like that, which is of course also a great part of him. And I could also fathom that he hasn't reached his limits also on these parts. And Bile says the whole clue on the book of Genefather is that Cole thinks that Bile is behind the, what's it called, Mater Portem, like the genetic material which was left of the Emperor in creating the Primarchs.
Oh, the Sang Primus Portum.
Thank you. Yeah,
that's the one.
And,
it's a horrible term to try and remember.
Quite difficult term, of course. But Bile isn't behind the
Sang Primus Portum.
Thank you. But he's behind Alpha Primus, because Alpha Primus is like the best thing compared to this original genetic material. Because
Bile would never get the original, but he could easily get Alpha Primus.
Yeah, because Cole has perfected his craft into Alpha Primus. So Alpha Primus gene seed, better to say, is everything kind
of distilled into the useful parts.
A crazy genetic crafter could wish for.
Yeah. Basically, yeah, you're right, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see what comes from that next, but I think that the gist of it is that's going to lead to, again, for anyone that doesn't know, in Genefather, there seems to be some implications that Bile is against his own will, working for Abaddon in some way.
Yes.
So I think that this is going to lead to Primaris Chaos Marines.
Yeah,
I think that's what the point of this is.
There's a strong suggestion that Abaddon wants to have something to face off the Primaris Marines, and I think it's going to be like chaotic Primaris Marines.
Yeah.
Because interestingly, it's called that, I do not know in which book it is mentioned, but that Primaris Marines are also resistant against chaos. So we do not have yet any remark of Primaris Marine fallen to chaos.
That's not true.
Isn't it? Okay.
So there's a whole thing, I can't remember what novel it's in, but there's a whole bit about, like, I think it might be Dante that talks about it, or something like that, about the Primaris being unable to fall to the Black Rage and being resistant to chaos. And it turns out later on that neither of those are true.
No. It's called, like, Games Workshop said early on that the Primaris Marines, like that Belisarius called perfected the Primaris Marines also in regard to their original genetic flaws, like which we have got on the Blood Angels or the Space Wolves, for example. Like the Canis Helix and also the Gene Seed of Sanguine, they create intentioned flaws. Like the Space Wolves have got the danger to evolve into the Wolfen, or the Blood Angels have the danger to get into the Red Thirst or Black Rage. And it was mentioned early on that Call has perfected the Gene Seed or the Primaris Marines in such an extent that also the original flaws are not a matter anymore. They are fixed.
Right.
But then again, we get to experience in Darkness in the Blood that is not actually true, because their Primaris Marines of the Blood Angels chapter fall to the Red Thirst or Black Rage. I do not, maybe
it's the
both,
Black Rage.
maybe either of them. Not sure about that. But that is not the same thing as falling to chaos.
No, I know, but I'm sure. So it's not the same source, but I'm sure there is a point where it does get mentioned that some of them have turned traitor. But I don't know for sure. It might have been like a background reference. It might not be like a technically canon thing. I just have it in my head that it's mentioned at some point. But the fixing the genetic issues in them, I believe it's correct that technically they shouldn't fall to like the Wolfen Curse or the Red Thirst anymore, but the Black Rage is not a genetic flaw, which is why they can still fall to it. It's not an issue in their gene seed, it's something warp based, because it doesn't matter what your genetics are, you can't have a dead guy's memories without some magic being involved. And when they fall to the Black Rage, they actually believe they are Sanguinius, and they scream Horus's name, and they hunt through, what they believe are the halls of Horus's ship, killing Marines that they see as the Heresy era Marines and stuff like that. So they're actually seeing Sanguinius's memories at the time. So it's not a genetic flaw, it's some kind of warp-based nonsense based on his bloodline, I guess.
I'm not going to argue about that, and I'm also not going to dive into that too much, because I'm not sure about the whole warp gene seed connection thing about that. I'm just not an expert on that topic. It's just on another level of lore knowledge that I certainly do not have.
Yeah. Did you ever read the Flesh Tearers novel? I think we might have talked about this last time.
No. I haven't.
Yes, you've held off on reading it because it's got such terrible reviews, didn't you?
Yeah. I'm not going to read it because of the reviews I've read about it. It's terrible. It's like a really, sorry for the language, but it's a really shitty work. And because I read reviews from other fellow fans of Warhammer 40K, which are also dedicated readers of it.
Yeah.
So I'm rather sure that if they do this, gives a strong recommendation to not read a Warhammer 40K book, then I have a great time investment preserved to not read it. I strongly trust them. Yeah, and so I haven't read it, and I'm also not going to read it.
So
I have
read
it on my
it.
shelf.
I read the Flesh Tearers novel. What was it? Wrath of the Lost.
Yes.
Yeah. So I read that because I got into a little bit where I was doing a bunch of Blood Angels novels. So I did the trilogy, Dante, Devastation of Baal, Darkness in the Blood. I did all of them, and then the Flesh Tearers novel released while I was in the middle of reading them. I think I was about to finish Devastation of Baal when it was released. So I just grabbed it. I was like, I'll read that at the end of it all. And it carries on directly from Devastation of Baal, but it just goes down this like side path for the Flesh Tearers. And the point of the book and the action scenes in the book are not great, right? Like the general point of the book is pretty subpar. If I explained like the general plot, you'd be sitting there going, I don't care. What is the plot? Who cares? Right? But there's a lot of talk about the Red Thirst and the Black Rage and the kind of implications of those and how the chapter handles it and things like that. And it's a really good exploration of that part of the lore. It opens up a lot of room for discussion, and it gives you a lot more information about it, because the Flesh Tearers are a chapter that are entirely focused around the Black Rage.
They're basically the prime example for suffering and enduring it.
Exactly, yeah, and using it to fuel them is their main thing as well. So the novel has like the return of the death companies and stuff like that, which is obviously a big deal. The book doesn't really have any point to it other than just to explore this concept of the Black Rage, really. And if you look at it as just that, it's actually really good. If you just want to learn about the Black Rage and see how the chapters handle it and stuff, that part is really good. It's just that they still have to write it like a Warhammer novel, so there's all like the scene setting and like the fighting and stuff, and all of that part's pretty terrible. So, it depends what you're looking to get out of it.
And could also be, I agree with that, because it can be the perfect example for that, but there has got to be the frame where it is centered in. So because there can also be the best action scenes, but if the rest of the book it's garbage compared to it, it doesn't help with getting a good recommendation. Because I think Guy Haley, for example, I love Guy Haley. Guy Haley is the foremost writer of Warhammer 40K books in the modern era. So we have got the Dark Trilogy, we have got all the books of Belisarius Call. Okay, there are only two, but
they're good
nonetheless. And he hasn't written the line book, but I could also imagine that he writes like a line book. And what Guy Haley does really good, in my estimation, at least, is that he writes great dialogues. So I love to read about the dialogues of Booty Gilliman and the Dark Imperium Trilogy, because there he breathes life into this character in such a great extent that I just can really imagine Gilliman being like that in Warhammer 40K.
Yes. I agree with you there, yeah.
But in comparison, I do not like his action scenes. I think his action scenes are on the better side of his writing, or on the worse side of his writing, I wanted to say. And they are not the things that keep me into his his books. It's all of the other parts, his world building, his character creations, his dialogues, but not his action scenes.
Yeah. Did you ever read Leviathan, the new novel? I think it was like the first one that came out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not a great fan.
Yeah, I basically got a terrible review for that, which was it's a lot of combat for absolutely no reason plot wise. Like it's a lot of action scenes that are all right. They're not bad. They're not amazing, but there's no point to any of it.
I think
I'm just not going to read that.
There was great potential because we already have got that connection between Ultramarines and Tyranids, which was, of course, the first great Tyrannic war where the Tyranids, I think it was High Fleet Behemoth, but I'm not sure, or was it Kraken, the first one?
I think Behemoth was the first one that turned up.
Behemoth, okay.
I think.
Which reached all the way into Ultramar to Macreth, and where it was only stopped by the heavy loss of the first company of the Ultramarines. They were killed. All of them were killed. Yeah. And that's why Ultramarines especially hate the Tyranids, because they took such a severe damage onto that chapter. And this isn't a thing in Leviathan, the book. So we have a brief mention of their history, of their past, but it's the whole book isn't about that, which is a pity, because there has been such potential to write about that. And also about what you read in the review, there is a big part of the book where a character, a Primaris apothecary, goes from place A to place B to get something from place B, and goes back from place B to place A. And this whole journey from him, going from A to B to B to A, it takes so much pages, and it does so in an unnecessary way. And also that is just bad. It's really not a great book. I also gave this recommendation not to read that book, because I found it had great potential at the start, because it felt like the author wanted to write like an alien type of novel of Warhammer 40K, like a horror aspect of it, which was written also great in the first few pages of it. But he lost that motivation, or this story-wise line early on, and then it hasn't turned out great.
Yeah, that sounds right. So I have a question for you, right?
Yes.
What is your favorite series of novels within 40K? But I'm gonna say not including the Horus Heresy as one major series.
And also not including Siege of Terror?
Yeah, well, that is technically just part of the heresy. But I feel like if you ask anyone this question, I feel like basically everyone will answer some section of the Horus Heresy. And I feel like the other smaller storyline series are a better kind of representation of, like, I guess, of you personally, of your taste. You know what I mean?
So your question is what series I like the most?
Yes, but not including the Horus Heresy as a option.
But could you give me some examples? Like,
I
have difficulties with the term of series, because I think there aren't that many series of books, at least in my current image.
So I'm thinking of like the sets of novels that are like an independent trilogy or duology. So like there's, if you decided to really like Guardsmen all of a sudden, you've got the Minkalesque series. You've got the Fabius Weil trilogy. You've got the Dark Imperium trilogy. There's was it the Lords of Mars trilogy? These kind of things. So the kind of the smaller independent sets. Or even the inquisitorial ones like Beckwin and Ravenor and stuff like that, Eisenhorn. Those kind of ones as well. Anything like that.
I got you. My problem. So whenever I look on this side, there's my bookshelf. So
Yeah.
I'm not distracted, but I'm rather more focusing on your question.
Yeah.
I haven't read that many series to in the full content. So I have read, of course, Horus Heresy. Not all of them, but many. I have read, of course, the Siege of Terror series. I have read from the Indomitus Crusade the first 3 books. I've read the Dark Imperium trilogy. I've read the Blood Angels. I've read the one of the Space Wolves trilogies. And that's it. So there aren't that many that can compete in this question. So I would say Dark Imperium, because I love the spotlight of. I think Primarchs are great characters. So there is, of course, the Primarch series is too big, so I wouldn't count that. Also, I would exclude that out of the question. And I think many authors have written about Primarchs, but I think Guy Haley does Gilliman justice in the Warhammer 40K scenario, because we experienced Gilliman in 30K during the Great Crusade and in the Horus Heresy as an idealist who was really caught on the aim of the emperor, like to get humans the privilege of living life without fear, to conquer the galaxy, to eradicate all xenos, all dangers, and to also really great take or really great importance to it, to spread the imperial truth. So there are no religions, there are no gods, there's nothing there. There's just pure reason. And then we see a Gilliman in Warhammer 40K who is just devastated by the state of the Imperium, what has happened in 10,000 years of pure decline to it. We've got a whole new religion, which is like a cancer connected to the Imperium. You cannot have the Imperium without the belief of the Emperor being a god within it in modern Warhammer 40K. And he has to deal with all of that. He has to deal with 1,000 battlefronts. He has to deal with 1,000 problems, more than that, actually, with uncounted problems. And they keep piling onto each other. And he has to do so, like, in a simultaneum. He has to do so
simultaneously?
Yeah. He has not the time to he would love to have the time to face each problem singularly, but he hasn't got the time for it. He has, and there are so much grave dangers, like the Tyranids, the Necrons with the Silent King, Chaos with the 13th Black Crusade and all its effects onto it. There are it's breaking him. And I see that in the Dark Imperium trilogy really really good, and that's why I would choose that. And also, of course, because we have like the opposite of Gilliman, we have got a demonic Primarch, we have Mortarion, and it's always great to read about Primarchs. So that's my take.
That's fair. I like that. That's a good one. I feel like you've got good reasons for picking that. I like it.
What would yours be?
So personally, I would probably say that I've been enjoying the Beckwin series more than any other of the novels, but the reasons for that is because of the writing style more than anything. I like the way that they do these Inquisitor novels as if they're like these, like, I guess Inquisitors are typically written as like an Imperial agent, right? Like it's a spy novel kind of thing. As long as you don't think about Awakenings, that is.
Yes.
Yeah. And to be fair, I like the Awakenings as well, but it's not the same. But it's something about the way the Beckwin ones have been done where the character is still in this position where they have to like fulfill the role of an Inquisitor, but they're by no means an Inquisitor. They have not got the skill set or the resources or anything to be able to do what they need to do properly, but they kind of just accept that they have to do it and just go for it. And there's something about that, like the fact that you've got all these really good bits with like old characters coming back from the previous two series, and like references to even older characters than that, like references to things from back in the origin of the Imperium, as well as this like these really good group dynamics and stuff like that we always have with Inquisitors, where they build a little team of like ragtag weirdos that shouldn't be together. I feel like I don't know, something about it, all the parts are right to me, and it just adds up to a great experience.
Yeah, I have to say, so also good points, but I cannot say anything about it because in my shelf there is standing like the first book of the Eison series, Xenos, and there is standing the whole trilogy of Ravenor, and also the two Bankryn series books. I think there's going to be a third one.
Yes, there is.
Most probably. And so I haven't read them. Maybe that would also, or most definitely, this would alter my answer to some extent. But I'm looking forward to it. And when it comes down to this question, I think it's also always connected to the question, which authors do you like in the Black Library?
Yeah.
So we've got many authors, and I think my strong recommendation, or my all-time top tier authors, would be, of course, the creator himself, Dan Abnett. We've got Aaron Dembski Bowden, who writes really great novels.
Armageddon and the what?
I think that. Aaron Dembski Bowden's novels have the greatest characters because he gave them really insights and also edges that you can think that they are really live characters. And the third one would be Chris Wright. But in Warhammer 40K, I would say Guy Haley, because we haven't got that many books concerning the events of modern Warhammer 40K, of Aaron Dembski Bowden and so on. We have got more novels of that, and I really like them, but Guy Haley is the most prominent of the modern authors. Yeah, so that would be my author here list.
When it comes to the authors, I would agree with you about like Dan Abnett and Guy Haley, but I would add John French, because the Ahriman novels are excellent.
Haven't read them.
Yeah, they are a truly excellent series, and I could not praise John French enough for what they've done with that series. It is really well handled.
I have read some novels of John French, like from the Siege of Terror series, of course, Solar War, and also the fifth book, Mortis.
Yeah.
But I have to say, Mortis is by far the weakest books of them. If you do not count the novellas into it, because the novella of Garo is arguably the most...
I think that noise summed up your point.
It had great potential, but that's another point. And I also read his Horus Heresy novels, like Praetorian of Dawn and Sigismund. And I think all of them were great, but arguably I would say that of all the other authors, they have got something that I cannot describe in a good manner that just takes an edge above John French. Again, Sigismund is a 10 out of 10. I also reviewed it and gave it that recommendation because when it comes to the character series of the Horus Heresy books, where we have got only 3 books right now, like Valdor, Luther, and Sigismund is by far the best of them because gives exactly what the reader wants. It gives a portrayal of Sigismund, what he stands for, his journey, new things we did not know of him, things we did know but haven't got any pages or any lore about it, and he does a great justice to Sigismund as a character.
Yeah. So, right, there were a few questions that I probably should have asked you at the start of this that were going to be like, I don't know, I guess a place to start with, but I think I'd still like to go through them.
Yeah.
So, the first question is going to be, how did you actually get into Warhammer 40K?
Yes, good question. I think I got into Warhammer 40K. Like my brother had got Nintendo DS, Nintendo DS, like the follow-up model of the Game Boy Advanced.
Yeah.
And there he had got a video game of Warhammer 40K. I think that was the first contact. But what really got me into the hobby was, I think, where I've got a strong connection to it was the Warhammer 40K Dawn of War computer game.
Oh, yeah.
Strategic computer game. I think also, like, from all of the 3 video games that there are existent, like Dawn of War 1, Dawn of War 2, Dawn of War 3. Dawn of War 1 is the best one.
I didn't know they made a 3. I've got 2.
That was devastating. It was devastating bad. Devastatingly bad. It got really bad reviews because it was really bad. And there was also, once again, I think maybe one of my most preferred sentences during this episode. It had much potential, but wasted it. So, do not look at it because you should. It's not a good game.
Good to know.
And I think Dawn of War 1 was my first part which got me into the hobby, and I also can strongly recommend the Apocalypse mod for the game because it extends the game to such a great length that you have got new factions, you have got you can play Titans and so on, which kept me which let me play it for, I think, 150 game hours or so.
Wow.
It's just great. But what got me into the lore aspect of it, which is what I'm all about in the Warhammer 40K universe, was then my first 3 novels which I bought. Like, I got, I think my first novel was World Engine. In German, it's called Die Weltenmaschine, by Ben Counter, and it was also perhaps the best book I could have picked because World Engine is a beginner's book. It goes great lengths to explain all of the specific rules of a Space Marine chapter. Of Space Marine chapter figures. So you've got it really is a beginner's book. You have got the Tech Marine, the Scout Master, the Scriptor, the Chaplain, the Chapter Master, and all of these get like an explanation. The story goes on, and it's about an Imperial Fist successor chapter, the Astral Claws. No, not the Astral Claws. The what is it? Astral Knights. My bad. Yeah. Which are fighting against Necrons, so you have also got the Necron aspect of it, but it does so in a great manner. So we have also other books which did this, which came out, like Leviathan was for the 10th edition, Indomitus, the book, the title book, it's called Indomitus by Geoff Thorpe, was released for the 8th or for the 9th edition. And Dark Imperium by Gay Haley was released for the 8th edition. Yeah. And Leviathan and Indomitus are perhaps one of the most worst books I've read. So World Engine does that great honor. And to complete or to completely answer your question, so it was Dawn of War, the video game, it was World Engine as a book, and then to get me really to set my interest into Warhammer 40K and to bring it up to a crazy life eating time hobby. It was Fulgrim, or The Last Phoenix. I've got a compendium book of the Horus Heresy novels of the Emperor's Children. So
right.
just give me a moment. Like it's that one. I think in English it's The Last Phoenix, and as you can see, it's quite a big chunk because it has got the novels Fulgrim, like the fifth Horus Heresy novel into it, Angelus Exterminatus, which covers for the first time the Iron Warriors and also Fulgrim's ascension to demonhood, and then all also short stories and novellas which were connected into it, like also the part where Fulgrim gets tortured by his own space marines, like by Lucius, by Fabius Bile, Eidolon, because they think he is possessed by a demon, which he was, but not at that point of time anymore. And which is also quite hilarious, and also shows that Fulgrim has, to that point, fully committed to chaos. Because when he killed Pharos Manus in the book Fulgrim during the Dropside Massacre, he didn't do it intentionally, because that was the point where the demon took over his physical form and did it for him, because Fulgrim just couldn't do it. He couldn't kill his most beloved brother, Primarch. And after that, Fulgrim gets again his body back and banished the demon into a painting, which was what the demon did to Fulgrim. And this just shows that Fulgrim is just full-on Slaanesh, chaos, demonhood.
Fulgrim's storyline is just nonsense, isn't it?
It's nonsense, but it's great nonsense. Fulgrim is probably one of the 3 books which, if I would have to rate my all-time tier list of all the Warhammer 40K books, including Horus Heresy and so on, I would rate Fulgrim pretty high, because of my strong emotional attachment to it as the book which brought me really into the hobby, and because it's just written really great.
It is,
so sorry for the long answer, but
no, it's fine. That's what I was after. I feel like the like backstories, or the kind of like secondary storyline stuff in the Fulgrim novel is also really well done.
Secondary? What do you mean?
You know how the stories always have like 3 characters that all have their own storyline, and they like every chapter jumps between them and stuff.
Yes.
I felt like all of them were really strong in the Fulgrim novel.
Yeah, like
with the painting and stuff like that, and the Maraviglia. I felt like
also the Memorata not the Memorata, but the artist who created the statue of the Emperor, where he got impaled at last by Fulgrim. Great, really great, loved it.
Yeah, I can't remember his name now. That's going to annoy me.
I can look it up. I think it was also something like Ossian de Fleur, or something like that. That was it.
Yes. Aye. Yeah, no, that was an absolutely excellent storyline. I love that.
Have to read it again. Cause now that I have the book right before me, I want to read it again.
Yeah, what is it? He ends up impaled on it, and then she impales herself on it because she couldn't believe what she had done.
Yes, because she was in love, but then realized how much chaos had taken a toll out of her, physically and also mentally. Of course, much more mentally than physically. And she just realizes. Maybe it's a good way to end your life.
I love I love the idea of that image, and I really want to see someone's like artwork of it. I really want to find like a really nicely done, stylized like picture of that someone's drawn of these two people impaled on a statue of the Emperor in the like, artist studio.
Yeah,
I feel like that would be really cool.
I love that they did exactly that take on the first trilogy books of the Horus Heresy. Like there is the famous picture which also Kayla, the supposed saint, did of Loken when she was only a memorator, imaginist. When Loken took the oath of the moment from Abaddon. Or not from Abaddon, but I think Sergatagos or someone like that, where the whole Mournville assembled and also the company of Lokens before he ventured onto to oppose the enemies of the Whisper Heights or whatever it was called.
Whisperheads.
Whisperheads. Thank you.
Yeah.
And that image, which she did in the book, has some artists made in reality, and it looks really great.
Yeah. See, I love stuff like that. I love people's recreations of the artwork in real life. So, the next question I had, I feel like people could probably guess. It's probably going to be a pretty simple answer. I was going to clarify, which is your favourite faction within 40k? Being that we've only spoken about humanity and Space Marines so far, it seems like a safe guess, but, you know.
Definitely Space Marines. I'm really all about Space Marines because I like that they are kinda invulnerable, that they have got so many strengths, but also of course weaknesses. But I think like any other faction is not interesting to me. Like Xenos are like Xenophils, so I do not want to read about orcs or necrons. Of course, I've also got some books about them. Like Standing in My Shelf like Forever is also was it called? You said a duology, right? When there are only 2 books in a series of the Twice-Dead King. I do not know. Do you know that?
Rain and
Ruin.
Yeah, Rain and Ruin. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, Ruin was the first one. Rain was the second one, and they are really great. Or so many reviews say. Nate Crowley, who wrote them, is a kind of he's a new artist or a new writer of Black Library, but he has done a great job on that. Or so many says, or the majority says. But I haven't had the time or the motivation to read it just now. Yeah, and I do not like to read about Imperial Guard because I think they are commonly the cannon fodder of Warhammer 40k. But then again, I have read also some of them. Like the last book I read about them was Fall of Cadia, and it does them also justice. But of course, Space Marines is my favorite faction. Yes.
Yeah. Out of curiosity, have you read Cadia Stands?
No, of the Minsk Less series, Cadia Stands, no. I haven't read it.
So
Cadia it was the first one of them, right?
Yes, aye. So it is truly an excellent novel, right? It does this typical thing where you get these 3 separate storylines that all kind of go along at the same time. And it follows Minka. I can't remember who who another one is, but the last one it follows is this like captain of the Cadian 101st, and it's funny because their whole storyline is them getting like messed around with their orders. Their orders keep changing all the time, and eventually they get like deposited into this like mountain stronghold that they have no way of leaving. So they just have to sit for like half of the book listening to Creed's messages on the radio for like war updates as the planet burns around them and they can't do anything. And there is one of the best scenes in any Warhammer 40k novel when Creed turns up to tell them what is going on. It is amazing. So, like, I remember I wasn't like, I didn't dislike the other parts of that book, but the storyline with the Cadian 101st is amazing. And the rest of the Minkalesk series also follows that that leader, because he ends up moving up the ranks and ends up leading the Cadian 101st as like a whole regiment. It's truly excellent. Could not recommend it more. But I've now read through 3 of the Minkalesk novels purely because I bought Shadow of the Eighth, which is the newest in the series.
Yes.
I bought it and then went, oh my god, now I'm going to have to read about Guardsmen.
You not only bought it, but you bought the limited edition.
Yeah, well, that's exactly it. So I bought that and then I had to sit there and go, well, now I'm going to have to read about Guardsmen. And then I started reading them because I realised that Cadia Stands was actually the first in the series and I had really enjoyed it. So I got Traitor Rock, which is the second, and oh god, what is the third? I don't know, I've blanked it. Regardless.
Haven't you gotten... did you not got the the collection, the last White Shield, where all of the previous books were combined into one book?
No, I didn't get that, unfortunately.
Okay.
It's because I listen to them as audiobooks, so I can listen to them while I'm working.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, because I don't get a lot of time to sit down and read, but I do get plenty of time that I can pretend to work while listening to an audiobook. So...
Yeah.
So I'm on the 3rd in the series just now, and I'll be honest with you, I'm loving every minute of it. So I didn't particularly like just normal Guardsmen either, but this series has really got me into it. So I think I'm going to branch out and do a bit more Guardsmen stuff in future.
Nice.
So, yeah, so I'd recommend at least giving Cadia Stands a shot, because, as I say, I could not recommend it more, even just for that one storyline.
You know, the problem about that is that I have so many books on my pile of shame that I would love to read it, and I'm going to read it, but I do not know when. Because
it might be a couple of years from now.
There's already, I've got the huge load of Eisenhorn, Ravenor, Bankrin, which I do know are exquisite. Yes. Because everyone who has read them says it's great, read them. Xenos, Eisenhorn Peps, one of the best works in the whole Black Library, all the best works. And it's still standing there. It looks at me disgusted, probably, because it stands there for about 2 years now. And I have not taken my time on it, because I know when I start Xenos, it's probably so good that I'm going to have to read Malleus, I have to read Hereticus, I have to read Magos, and then, of course, I have to read all of the Ravenor books, all of the Banking books, and that are 9 books.
Yeah.
And I have to read 9 books before I can read something in between or what comes after. Like, I do know that there's a Siege of Terror books going to release. I do know that probably the Primarch Book of Horrors is going to release. I strongly hope that another book of Gilliman or The Line is going to be released. And I have to take all of them apart. But of course, I want to be one of the readers when it's released to be also one of the fresh readers to read it in the same instance.
Yeah, no, I get what you mean. So the last kind of question that I had like prepared for this was, it's a pretty simple one, because I already knew which faction was your favorite, but which legion is your favorite? It can be either like 30k or modern day, because obviously there's quite a lot of changes in the middle.
You mean which chapter?
Well, it could be chapter, yes.
Okay. I would say loyalist-wise, I would say Imperial Fist, and traitor-wise, I would say Iron Warriors.
All right, okay, that's fair.
Yeah,
interesting. See, for me, it's Blood Angels on the loyalist side. Actually, it's Blood Angels or Space Wolves, because I do love my Space Wolves. They're hilariously funny. They're like the only
Space-
chapter or legion with a sense of humor.
Space Wolves would be my second one on the loyalist side, actually.
I think they would be my favorite on the loyalist side, and Blood Angels might be the second. But traitor wise, it has to be Thousand Suns. As much as I've grown to not be as much of a fan of Magnus as times went on, as a legion, their storyline is still incredible, and I love Ahriman. He is possibly my favorite character.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mainly because he's like... The guy's like a walking inferiority complex, and I love that.
Which you can say about seriously so many characters in Warhammer 40K.
Yeah, but none of them like end up with like dissociative personality disorder because of it and become a different guy. Because like in the first Ahriman book, it takes place it takes place after the whole rubric thing. So he's been banished from the planet of the Thousand Suns and all that.
Yeah.
And when it starts, he thinks he's like a different guy, and he's got like a new name, and he's just this pathetic little weirdo being beaten by a group of like random chaos marauders.
In which book is the rubric taking place? Is there a book where it takes actually place?
I don't think it actually takes place in a novel.
Okay. Because I always wondered about it. If I have read Thousand Suns and Prospero Burns, but I haven't read Crimson, the Crimson King of the Horus Heresy, where it follows the story of the Thousand Suns. But I have then again read Fury of Magnus, like the Siege of Terror variant.
Yeah.
And till then, I think there hasn't taken place the rubric hasn't took place until then.
The rubric takes place after the Horus Heresy has ended.
Yeah, okay. And Ahriman wanted to prevent the flesh change finally.
Yes.
Forever. Okay.
That was the idea.
What I find difficult is also always the numbers of legionaries which are existent in the Horus Heresy or after that. Because I do know that at some point, I think it was Karl, the Book of Karls, if fear, what is it? No fear.
Yes.
Yeah, I think there the legion numbers were retconned by Black Library or or Games Workshop. Until then, when you read the first novels of the Horus Heresy, you have got the numbers that say that Legion has got like 10,000 Space Marines or so.
Yeah.
I think. And in No Fear, we get to experience that a normal Legion has got 10 times that number. Like 100,000 is like the standard.
The standard.
The standard size. And we do know that the Ultramarines have got 250,000 because due to
the worlds of Ultramar.
Yeah, I would say also because of the second and the 11th Legion. We have some mention where it says that
every time one of those legions disappeared, the Ultramarines number swelled.
The Ultramarines got bigger. Yeah, exactly. Right. Which I
don't believe that. Because we know, so we've also had because I know the bit you're talking about, right? Because I got really into the idea of these two missing Primarchs for a while and did a lot of research into it. And so I found that and I was like, oh, that's really cool. But then we also have confirmation, which is that Russ murdered both of them. Russ and the Emperor's dogs hunted and killed all of these Space Marines and their Primarchs. So I'm like, well, that doesn't add up, because they couldn't have recruited from them if they killed them. But
no, it is mentioned that Russ and his legion were sent after them to sanction them. Like, it says that it wasn't when Russ is sent after Magnus. It said it wasn't the first time that he has done that task, or that a legion goes to war with another legion. So, which is called before the heresy is just a no-go. Like, nobody even dares to think about it. Nobody even can think about that.
Yeah.
But then again, we have got this probably, we do not know, the extermination of the 2nd and the 11th Legion with their Primarch. But it is mentioned that Leman Russ was and the Space Wolves were sent after them, but I think it's not mentioned that he exterminated each of the Legionnaires.
Fair, it's not explicitly said that he kills every single one of them or anything like that. Yeah.
And I think that it's kind of, he killed the Primarchs or whatever, and that the remind, or maybe also the most loyalist to the Primarch, whatever. And the reminders, which would probably a huge take because 100,000 legionnaires per legion were added to the Ultramarines.
So this is where another issue comes in, though, right? So say there is 100,000 Marines to each legion, right? So you've got Ultramarines 100,000, and then you've got the 2nd and the 11th, each 100,000, right? Each of their Primarchs or their legions do something so unforgivable that you have to eradicate them, right? Yes. So, say the Primarchs are killed, and then their most loyal troops who will not stop fighting for them are also wiped out. And that's, say, 25,000 of the Marines. So you get 150,000 in total added to the Ultramarines. That gives you their 250,000. Yeah. My issue is that would then mean that 150,000 Ultramarines are not actually Ultramarines and have a different gene seed. But that is never mentioned, and they would be visibly different people. You would spot them a mile off. If you have... Put it this way, if you have a Space Wolf among a bunch of Ultramarines, it's not the armor color that tells you they're a different thing. It's the fangs and the crazy long hair and the fact that they look Slavic in nature. They look like a different person.
But if you have got a Dark Angel on Imperial Fist on Iron Warrior between the Ultramarines, you could arguably say that it's not such a difference.
It's not such a difference, but like the apothecaries and stuff that had to handle it would notice. Like, it would be a thing, because let's be honest, Space Marines are slightly racist towards other Space Marine chapters or legions. They all have this like superiority thing, right? Like the Wolves of Russ think that the Wolves of Russ are the best ones. The Gilliman's ones think they're the best ones. Everything like that. Like they wouldn't just suddenly adopt in 75,000 new brothers that are all like from the reject legion that we had to kill and be like, oh yeah, you're one of us now. Like they would all hate each other. They would never accept that.
Yeah, but then there's also the matter when it took place, because of the Great Crusade itself doesn't took that long. It's I think maybe 200 years plus or so.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so which is in the expanse of or in the universe of Warhammer 40K is nothing. Yeah. But in that time, so much happened because of all the Primarchs and so on and so on. We do know that, of course, but when they were adapted early on, there's the adaptation time could have been that long that it doesn't take any difference in like 100 years forth from that point.
Yeah.
And
oh no, never mind. I was going to say the other thing is.
They emerged like as a legion together, and also in the Primarch book of Booty Gilliman, he also does that to his Ultramarines. Like have you read it?
I have not. No.
Okay, it's about Gilliman. It's after the recent events of the raising of Monarchia.
Right. And
Gilliman wants to prove to his legion and also to himself that they are not a legion which is, or the Space Marines are not about all devastating, but they are creators, they are builders. Yeah. Funnily enough, they are, in this book, they are eradicating orcs.
Yeah.
But he has a problem within his own legion because he has got the destroyers.
Mm-hmm.
Like the specialist teams which have got all the heavy weapons, like also force fax bombs and all the crazy shit.
Yeah.
And their captain dies, or their chapter master, or whatever, and they have a problem because the destroyers has always been like an independent chapter or an independent part of the Legion.
Yeah.
And Gilliman wants to bring them together into the Legion and to show them they are not an independent part. And what's rather more important, that the Legion has to be coherent. Also, in the case if Gilliman himself should die, he also mentions that explicitly. And I think that's one part that shows when we follow the thought of the legions combining, like the second, the 11th, and the 13th together, that Gilliman is also, of course, a logician, but he's he's a good thinker, and he's a good tinkerer when it comes to these elements of organizing legion elements.
Yeah, I suppose if anyone was going to put them together in a cohesive way, it would be Gilliman.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Well, we have been at this for hours now, so I feel like maybe this is a good place to leave off for this episode.
Yeah.
But yeah, this has been good. I feel like this was a good way to kind of start off having a new guest. To just sit down and have a good chat and kind of... I think anyone watching will be able to get a good idea of... I guess the kind of the areas you're interested in and the kind of the way you look at stuff from this.
Yeah.
So I feel like this is a good place to move forward from.
I think it is, in hindsight, crazy what amount of topic we have covered. Like, we have got 30k topics, general topics, 40k topics, personal matters, something like that, in such an amount of time. So your first question, or one of the first questions you asked me, was how I what my thoughts were about the novel of Belisarius called The Great Work. And I haven't even covered that question or the answer to it. Because we moved fluently from one question to another.
Yeah.
And it's not bad. Rather the opposite. I like that approach. And I like that we have like a coherent discussion or talk with each other. And I appreciate the opportunity to have that, because normally I have nobody to talk to that extent about Warhammer 40k. So
I have a similar thing. I'm in a similar boat in not having people to have this kind of discussion with, because when I do talk about it, I usually talk about it with Mez, who obviously the whole point is he doesn't know much about it. And then I've got a friend of mine from back in high school who was the one that got me into Warhammer, and he knows everything there is to know about it because he's so far into it. But he also is into fantasy and Age of Sigmar. So I'll be like, oh, have you read this new book? And he's like, of course I have. I've read all of them. And you're like, all right, sorry. And then he'll end up going in a big route about like how it lines up with fantasy and Age of Sigmar and the kind of the ways they intertwine storylines and stuff like that. And I'm sitting there like, I understand about a third of this conversation. Like, like I don't even know what like half of what you're talking about is. So, yeah, it's nice to be able to just sit there and have a chat with someone on, like, a similar level, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course, and as you have noticed yourself, I could talk with you for another 4 hours or so on.
Yeah.
So, because it's just such a great hobby lore-wise, and there are so many potential threads and topics and so on. It's lovely.
It is, yeah. So what we'll need to do is we'll need to figure out something that we're going to talk about next time that we do this. I feel like maybe we need to pick like a specific topic so that we can at least pretend we're like passing on information rather than just chatting.
Yeah.
Maybe whittle it down to like one area or something like that, but we'll figure it out.
I think so, yeah. I think that's not a problem, really.
Yeah, I don't think it will be. I think it's just a matter of picking one, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we'll leave it off there for today, if that's cool with you.
Of course.
I'm going to try and mimic Mez's outro here, but thank you guys for watching, and we will see you next time. Bye.